All right, welcome back to the Game Trail Podcast. I know that you guys have probably missed me. Probably not, but it's been 3 weeks since I got an episode out, and it was, man, I was just doing so good getting episodes out, but things just got busy at the office. Brady's been out of the office the last week or so, and prior to that, I had some of the application strategies bled downhill. We had individuals that were supposed to take care of them, and they got busy, and it just rolls downhill, and I ended up with a bunch of application strategy articles that I didn't anticipate, and so I've been working on those. Also, I'm not that tech savvy, so anytime somebody asks me to build an article on the back end of a website and I have to learn that process, it's going to be a major time suck for me because I just do not learn tech things that quickly anymore. But with that, I'm back today. I have a podcast. I have a guest today. I'm going to introduce him here in a second. His name's Sawyer, by the way, but I'll let him do some talking here in a sec. But before I get too into it, I want to hit you guys with a promo code. You can use the promo code GameTrail. That's just GAMETRAIL if you want to sign up for a GOHUNT Insider account. If you do that, you're going to get $50 back in the GOHUNT gear shop that you can use towards the purchase of any gear that you want in the shop, including archery-related equipment. We're going to do a lot of talking about archery today. Now's a great time to sign up for an insider account. There are still a bunch of the draws coming up. We've got New Mexico, which I think is this week. It's actually 2 days from now, the deadline for New Mexico. So we'll probably get this out the day that New Mexico deadline hits. So you want to make sure you get your app in there. You got Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, deer, elk, Nevada. You have a ton of states where those draws are still coming up. And so in order to make the best decision and try to get a permit for this coming fall, get yourself an insider account. Also, shout out to Matthews Archery as the sponsor of the podcast. I'll ask you here in a sec, but man, they just put out a film with Mark Hayes.
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, I don't care who you are, whether you're a diehard Matthews guy, a diehard Hoyt guy, I don't care who you are. They make good films, and you have to watch them. You can't not watch them if you're involved in archery.
You can't help but love that, right?
Oh, I heard it. I don't know if it's totally true or not, but I've heard that people outside of the archery industry, whether it's, in the car industry, the sales industry, I've heard that people will pull up their videos, like Matthew's videos, and say, hey, this is what the marketing videos basically is what they'll pull up and say, hey, this is what we want to, approach from a marketing standpoint. And these are goals we want to hit. And Matthews does this really well. Like I said, whether you're in the archery industry or not, I don't know if that's true or not, but I've heard and I don't blame people for pulling it up. I mean, they market stuff really, really well.
Yeah. I mean, it helps that they make a phenomenal product. It makes it that much easier to market when they make a fantastic product.
Yeah.
But then their marketing is so good. And Mark is I love that dude. Like, I really like Mark Hayes, man. I liked him before, and I didn't even really know this about him, that he would write letters to Matthews.
Yeah.
Just such a cool story. That was such a cool story.
I agree, which, I mean, that's super awesome. That tells a lot about a company, that tells a lot behind I believe he's the lead engineer, correct? And that shows a lot behind a lead engineer that is truly, truly passionate towards a sole company, and they're not selling themselves to multiple companies. If he's selling himself to like one company, he says, hey, this is who I want to be a part of. And that says a lot about a product,
For sure. I talked to Mark. He was at the Western Hunt Expo, so I went over there. Kyle was actually there. It was on a Saturday, I think. Kyle Douglas and him were kind of hanging out, demoing bows with people. And we were just hanging out, shooting the bull. And I was telling Mark, I was like, man, getting a new bow for me it's better than Christmas. It's better than any Christmas I ever had as a kid. I mean, sorry to my parents. They did their best. But to get a new bow for me is still like that feeling that I get when I was a little kid, when you got the thing that you really wanted. But when that thing shows up on my porch, and it's usually like the tail end of August or the 1st of September, I've been really fortunate. Those guys have included me in, kind of the prototype testing of a bow. But when that thing shows up on my front porch, I'm always so excited. And it's usually, almost always on a hunt, and I'm almost always texting my wife saying, hey, did I have a bow show up today? She's like, yeah, it showed up. And I'm always like, take it in the house and pull it out of the box. Take all the video of it. I want to see the video. I want to see pictures of it. I want to know what it looks like. And she's always good to entertain me that way. But it was funny because I was telling Mark that, and he's like, "Oh, dude," he's like, "By the time we send bows out, he's like, I'm so sick of that bow." He's like,
Oh,
"Cause
really?
yeah," he's like, "We've been working on the next year's bows and ideas and things for so long." He's like, "By the time that actually gets in a box and ship it out, it's like I just want that thing off my desk. I want to move on to the next idea." And I was like, "Mark, you were breaking my heart."
Obviously, that's like,
Yeah.
it's sad to hear coming from the lead engineer.
I get his perspective though, because the amount of effort and time and testing that it must take to come up with, a new bow, a new design. I mean, it has to be a major push, all out sprint for a year.
Sure. I mean, it's one of those things. It's like getting a song stuck in your head. You sit up at night and you think about it, and it ends up getting into your dreams, and then you start talking about it in your daily life. And I'm sure, I mean, we do the same thing here too. Like, by the time we talk about a product for as long as we have, I'm like, sheesh, I don't even want to talk about this anymore at all today. But I can definitely see where it comes from that.
There also is something to the fact that you've poured your heart and soul into it. When you finally see it hit somebody's hands and they get a chance to shoot it and stuff, I mean, there's that relief, right? Of like, oh, thank heavens this thing's out. Like, we can move on. Yeah. It's very cool. But yeah, shout out to Matthews. With that, we'll do introductions. So Sawyer, I've got Sawyer Ward on today. I'm actually not even 100% sure I knew your last name before today. I knew you as Sawyer, and I knew your Instagram handle, but I wasn't absolutely certain that I even knew your last name. So I appreciate you jumping on with me today. I was trying to think. Do you know when we first met? Do you remember?
I was thinking about that today too. Actually, I think the first time that we really exchanged hands and whatnot, and really put each other's face to face was, I think, at 2024 or 5 Total Archery Challenge. If I remember correctly, I was there with a couple buddies of mine, and I was like, "Hey, I want to go." It had to have been because I think it was 2025, because I had been with the shop for 6 months or something like that, or 4 or 5 months, and I said, "Hey, I want to go talk to these guys." They just had a podcast with Kyle, and I just want to go introduce myself to him.
Right. Yeah, that's right. I do remember that now.
Yeah, I think that was where, I mean, we had a couple conversations about at the time the lift had just come out, and we had a couple conversations about the lift coming out. And I had a couple questions that I wanted to ask you about the lift specifically, and so I remember that's when exchanged. That's when we exchanged. I think, like I said, handles and whatnot, and said hey to each other, which was cool. So
right, yeah, it's all coming back to me. I remember that for sure. I remember running into you in Vegas last year, so I'm sure we'll dive into that. We'll talk to you about Vegas. Give us an idea. Where are you from? Where do you live right now?
I live here in Utah. I live out in Tooele County, which is like an hour, 45 minutes straight west of Salt Lake City.
Gotcha. What do you? Go ahead.
I was gonna say I've lived out there for 15 years or so. I lived in the Valley till I was about 4 or 5, and then we moved out there initially to be closer to my dad's dad at the time. He lived out in Stockton, South Rim, and we moved out there to be closer to him. And we moved out there for the quietness of the place. It's not lately quiet, but at the time we moved out there, it was, I think we were like the third house on the street. There was lots open everywhere. We had a whole, a field essentially in front of us of houses, and now it's super populated. There's people going in, and I tell people that's the one thing I actually have come to really like Tooele. I didn't when we first moved there, but the one thing I don't like about that place is there's one way in there and one way out, and if it's backed up, you're stuck.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, Tooele's grown a ton, and then even everywhere west of that whole Wasatch Valley. I know Eagle Mountain's blown up.
Yeah, Eagle Mountain's huge. I remember when we first moved out there, it was when we drove the back way essentially to go to the south end of the valley. Driving through Eagle Mountain was desolate. It was a desert, and now it's huge. So.
Yeah, that's blown up. I have a sister that lives in Saratoga Springs right there. That whole valley's blown up, and then if you head anywhere you head west there, Salt Lake Valley just seems like it's just growing like crazy.
Yeah. I would say I was talking to my boss Tyson about that actually a couple of days ago, and I would say that the only places that really aren't totally settled down yet, I guess, would be basically west of Tooele, essentially going to to the border. That's which
Yeah,
I don't
to
know
Wendover.
what you do.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
give us who do you work for? What do you do?
I work for Sawyer Broadheads. Like I said, we're based out of here in Utah. We're located inside of the Easton factory, so we're owned by the same parent company as Easton is. But my strictly do SEVR stuff. Like I said, I'm involved a little bit in some Easton stuff, but I'm really the only true SEVR employee hired. So Casey Davies is a good
Mhm.
friend of mine. I know you've had him on the podcast before. He I've essentially taken his position.
Gotcha.
My official title is the sales coordinator, but I really kind of do everything SEVR related. Anytime a coworker introduces me to somebody, they say, "Hey, this is the SEVR guy." That just
Yeah.
anything for the SEVR umbrella is basically mine. So I'm on the marketing team, so I'm helping with a lot of marketing strategies for new product launch or newsletters and social media. I'm running a lot of sales. Like I'll kind of look at numbers, see what we're doing for the year, see what we're projected to do, and then I kind of do things like this where I'm
Yep.
essentially the face of it.
Yep. Yep. How long you been with Sever?
Like 3 months. I've been here. It's been very very new. I've been here since end of December or middle of December or so, and I've loved it. It's been a
Yeah.
really cool. It's I've shot Sever for a long time. It's actually one of my we met at the expo, or we
Mhm.
talked at the expo, and I was telling you that I tell a lot of guys at the expo or at events or over the phone. I do a lot of customer service stuff too. So over the phone, I'll tell people, "Hey, I've been shooting Sever for 5 6 years, and I've been working for them for 3 months. They could fire me tomorrow, and I'd probably still shoot them. Honestly,
Yeah.
like really,
Yeah.
it's a broadhead that I fully trust in, and so it's really cool to be
Mhm.
to now work for the company and help a company grow. And it's one that I've supported for a lot of my archery career, Easton
Yeah.
and Sever both.
For sure. Yeah, we'll get into broadheads. I want to talk broadheads. I also wanted to ask you. So I know that you worked at Douglas Archery, right?
Correct.
Worked
Yep.
for
In
worked
Ogden.
for Kyle there in
Mhm.
Ogden. How long did you work there, and what was that like?
I worked there for a little over a year and a half, or maybe right at a year and a half. I worked as a bow tech there, kind of as I don't want to say like a lead tech because I think Kyle's the lead tech. Everybody there
Mhm.
said I was the lead tech. I think it's really cool to have Kyle there, so I'd consider him the lead tech for sure. But I worked there for a year and a half, and I would go out on a limb and say it was probably the best year and a half of my life. Honestly,
Really,
it was
that's
such a
awesome.
cool experience to have not very much knowledge in the target
Mhm.
industry, but to really I came from Shields as a bow tech doing the same exact thing. I worked there for like 2 years. Did that kind of right out of high school. It was always a dream of mine to go work for Shields.
Mhm.
As a bow tech. So Casey at the time was the archery manager over at
Yep.
Shields when I got hired. So he was like my manager there, and I worked alongside him for a lot of stuff. But I worked as a tech there, and I told my parent I was doing college for a little bit. I went to Slick and I did my generals, got my
Mhm.
generals done,
Yep.
and I planned on going into like a psychology major.
Mm.
Which I still think is super cool, but it's just not. I looked at like the career paths of that and I was like, well, I don't really want to be a counselor and I don't really want to be a school teacher. So I guess we're going to choose something else. So
Right.
I told my parents I really, really wanted to be a professional archer. And it wasn't like a laugh in the face, but it was pretty much like, okay, if you're going to do it, like, let's get
Yeah.
serious, do it.
Mhm.
So I really started diving into the target side of stuff. I really started diving into target archery and following along with that and making it my sport, I guess, that I follow, if you will. And no more than probably a week. This was me working 2 years into Shields now, and I was kind of looking for a new job, but I wasn't really sure where to go, so I was content with staying.
Mhm.
And not even maybe a week later, after I told my parents that, I followed the shop page and it said that we were hiring, or it
Mm.
said that they were hiring, and I told my parents like, this is what I got to do if I'm gonna chase this goal or this dream of mine. I got to go work for Kyle.
Right.
So I got hired on there, and
Did you know him before?
I didn't know I had no. So I he'll laugh at hearing this. I totally fangirled going into this interview. Like
Mm.
he opens the door and he's like, "Hey, are you Sawyer?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, this guy's literally talking to me right now." And this is, in my opinion, this is the go-to archery right here. Like this,
Sure.
and I'm talking to him right now. So I
Mhm.
and I still I still think about that to this day, and it's super cool to have that kind of experience with somebody. That's something that's really cool, I think, in the archery industry and the target industry specifically, is that it's not really that big of an industry. I mean, you've been at the Vegas shoot.
Mhm.
There's compared to any other industry's event, their Super Bowl, I guess you call it, because I
Yep.
mean, the Vegas shoot is the Super Bowl of the archery industry. It's not really that big. And so where I'm going with that is you can be in really tight quarters with a lot of the big people in the industry, right? You can have conversations with them. You can DM and then they'll respond to you. You can jump on a call with them and they'll usually talk to you. So
Yeah.
it's really cool to know Kyle on that sort of level. But
Yeah, they're super accessible, right? I mean, it's still super. It's small enough that it's a small enough industry that you can still shoot one of those guys a DM or a message or bump into them at a show or shoot, and they're just like any other person. That's the funny thing. It's funny that you're talking about this. So, like last week, we had Jeff Rowley on. Do you know who Jeff Rowley is?
I don't. I mean,
So okay, so I grew up skateboarding. It was like I love skateboarding. I still love it. I still follow it. Like I still watch a ton of street skateboarding. Like absolutely loved it. Right. So I started skating when I was probably 8. And I skated. I didn't quit skateboarding until I was like 26 or 7. Like I was, yeah, like I loved it. Just absolutely loved it. And then Jeff Rowley is like an absolute god. He's like on the Mount Rushmore of street skateboarding, right? Like he grew up in Liverpool, came to the U.S. and he came. It's funny because he came to hunting lately, like probably within the last, I don't know, 8-10 years or something. He got into hunting, and when I heard that he was into hunting, I was just like, this is incredible. Like my favorite skateboarder of all time, this guy that like is an absolute legend.
here.
Yeah, is now into hunting, and somehow we ended up getting connected through Lorenzo, and Jeff does some guiding and stuff for this place called Kika. He does some sheep guiding. Anyway, I ended up getting connected with him, and I had his cell phone number. And I remember, like, the first time I shot him a text message, like I was telling my wife when I was driving home, and like if he listens to this, he'll probably laugh too. But yeah, I was just like telling my wife, like, I can't believe I'm texting Jeff Rowley right now.
Yeah.
And then we had him on the podcast a few weeks ago. We just released that episode, the Big Hunt Guys podcast last week. But yeah, I mean, to sit across from the table of that guy and just like pick his brain and just talk to him like this, I've been worshiping this guy since I was like 15.
Right.
It's a wild feeling, and just a normal dude, the most down to earth dude.
Yep.
Just completely.
And that's exactly what it was like doing with Kyle. Like Kyle is this totally down to earth guy. Him and his family both. He's just and at heart, he's just a cowboy that likes to bow hunt.
For
like
sure.
He wears his boots every day, and he's wearing a belt buckle every single day. Yeah. And he's just a normal guy. That geeks out on bows and likes to work on bows and is pretty damn good at it, I'd say.
Yeah. Oh, unbelievable. So, yeah, that's actually been one of my most favorite thing about the job that I've landed in is just the opportunity to talk to some people like that. Like I never would have thought that like skateboarding and hunting, that world would collide. And I love archery, and like the opportunity to talk to a Kyle or a Paige or something like that. It's been one of my most favorite things, is to just sit and talk with those types of people that are the best at something that I like am passionate about and I care about. And it's so fun to just see their personalities. And I don't know, I'm getting off topic, but I was telling Lorenzo, so because Lorenzo was on that podcast with Jeff, but the people that we've had on podcasts that are like that top 1% of the field, the thing that they do, it's so crazy to me. Their personalities are so similar. You'd be so surprised at how similar that type of individual is.
Yeah.
Across a variety of different endeavors. It's just, there's like something about them that is different. They're like possessed.
That's why they're the 1%.
It's crazy.
It's really interesting when you start talking about like their mental game, because all of their mental games are, I wouldn't say exactly the same, but they have the same template, right? Like Kyle, I know, would talk to had a coach, essentially a mental game coach, and every professional archer has a mental game coach, and their coach has nothing to do with archery. They don't talk about archery at all. I mean, I'm sure they do probably a little bit, but it's never like a archery geared coach. It's completely a mental psychology coach or a mental psych coach, and all of them have the same mentality. So when you start talking about, like I said, that 1% in anything, it's everybody has a very, very similar mental mindset to whatever they're good at.
So fascinating.
It is.
What was it? What did you learn from working around Kyle? And I know that's a broad question and loaded question, but maybe if
Sure.
you have something that like jumps to the top of your mind that you're like, wow, I wouldn't have thought of that.
Um, I wouldn't say there's anything that like I hadn't really thought of. I think
Mm-hmm.
one thing that just really was driven home from me from Kyle was just to get out and shoot your bow. Like
Mm-hmm.
you will gain so much more shooting your equipment instead of dinking with your equipment. If you spent the amount of time and like it's the thing to do right now. I know a lot of people in the archery industry, archery as a whole, the technology has advanced it light years since, I mean, even 10 years ago. And so people are very hands-on equipment. That's what a lot of bow manufacturers are doing right now, is making it easier to tune a bow,
Mm-hmm.
with a set of Allens is all you need essentially. And so it's really, really easy to tune with or to dick with stuff, but I think it needs to be there needs to be a bigger push of just shoot your bow. And that was something that I really, going back to starting at the shop, I was very, very new to the target industry. And so I wanted to try all these little things. And I hear something about this and I want to try it. Hear something about this and I want to try it. And at the end of the day, Kyle was like, let's pick something. Cause I was very fortunate enough to be able to like say I was coached by Kyle. There
Mm-hmm.
was a lot of nights that we'd stay after the shop after hours and we'd shoot together and we'd work on stuff. It was awesome. It was, like I said, it was the coolest experience of my life, honestly. But that being said, there was a lot of things that he'd say, let's stick with this for the next month, let's call it, and just shoot a game and shoot a game and shoot a game and see what it does. And it's fascinating how easy it is to essentially make something muscle memory, even if you don't like it, even if it's something
Mm-hmm.
that's not correct. Like let's say a draw length or a peep height is off from where it probably should be. If you shoot it for long enough, you're going to get good at it. And
Right.
you talk about the guys, like I'm setting up guys with bows, especially during busy season all day long. And so there's a lot of guys that came into the shop and said, I want to get a new bow. Let's get it fitted to me. I've never really had a bow truly fitted to me. And they're like really, really tall guys
Mm-hmm.
that'll come in and we measure their draw length and they're 32 and a half inches, and they've been shooting a bow that's 30 inches, 31 inches for all their life. And they go shoot their bow and they drive tacks with it. They pound with it, but it's just because they've been doing it for as long as they have. So I would say, kind of going back to my original statement, just shooting your bow will do absolute wonders for you. I mean, obviously, like I said, there's the little things that you'll pick up here and there, your holding weight, your peep height, your draw length, your loop length, all that sort of stuff plays into each individual person, but just shooting your bow with the specs that you have on it is going to do wonders for you. And that was something that was really, we're kind of at the tail end of the indoor season right now.
Mm-hmm.
But when I left the shop, I had really kind of started to get my title figured out, my title 38, and I haven't changed anything since I've left the shop. And I've been shooting it just a bunch lately without changing anything. And I finally started to like
Mm-hmm.
consistently rack some 300s on the wall, which is awesome. I
Yeah.
my third day here, actually, I asked a bunch of the guys here. I was like, "Is there an indoor lane here? Do I go over to the Easton Center? Have you been over to the Easton Center before?"
Never been. Looks
So
cool.
it's an awesome facility. But
Yeah.
there's an indoor range, then an outdoor range too.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the guys will go shoot there. We're allowed to go shoot there. But I asked them if there was like anywhere here that I could just shoot a 20-yard lane. I figured there had to be, and sure enough, there is.
Yeah.
Just like it's a
Mm-hmm.
shallow but I'm 4 feet across lane, But I asked if I could shoot in there, and they said, yeah, people shoot in there all the time. And I'd maybe only shot like one or two, like actually recorded 300s
Mm-hmm.
before working here for that year and a half that I was working for Kyle. I shot maybe one or two 300s, and I went and shot on my third day working here, and I shot a 327X, and I was like,
Nice.
sheesh,
Yeah.
something's clicking here. And
Nice.
so anyway, going back to that, I shooting your bow and shooting the stuff that you have on there is going to do wonders for you rather than trying to change a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. I'm prone to tinkering. Like, if I'm like, oh, it holds well, but maybe it could hold a little bit better if I put, 2 ounces on my front bar and I lengthened it out and then I
Sure.
changed the angle of my back bar, or I'm always looking for like what's the thing that's going to be the tipping point. Reality is in the back of my mind, and I know this. Like it's there's not a tipping point. Like there's no piece of equipment that's like going to take you from a 290, Vegas indoor score to a 300 just because you
Right.
change some equipment. It's
Right.
it's the guy behind the bow, and for
It's always,
sure,
yeah, it's
you
always
know,
the, for
it's
sure.
it's always the individual behind the bow. But I am prone to tinkering. I think I asked Paige. I said, how do you know when to stop tinkering? Like when is the time where you're like, I am done tinkering, I am just going to shoot my bow? And I think once you get your bow tuned, I mean, if it'll shoot a clean hole, and maybe you can bear shaft tune it. We can talk tuning here in a second, but like if it'll bear shaft tune, out to whatever distance you're pretty consistent with. If you get a good paper hole, if it'll group tune, it groups nicely. Like at that point, like it's time to just put all that aside and grow into it, like you're saying.
For
And
sure.
I noticed that with bows. So like I'll get a bow, usually like I said, late August, early September. It usually takes me a while to like fall in love with it. Like I would say by midsummer, I've hunted with it and I've had successful hunts. Like I've had no issue tuning the thing, but to like really get that thing to the point where I'm like in love with it and it feels like just like an appendage of my arm. It just is like natural.
Right.
It takes me a while. Like it just takes time. It just takes time shooting it. So that's good advice. The other thing that I would say that had to have been cool, and it's more of just a statement rather than a question, is and I've been thinking about this a lot lately, is like a high tide rises all boats, right? So the opportunity to like shoot with him, just consistent, like you're gonna hang out after the shop and shoot with him. It has to raise the temperature in the room. Like you have to shoot better because you're now shooting with somebody who is better than you.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, and I think there's very much like there's a tipping scale to that, and it can be used very, very poorly. And so my mom would tell me that all the time. She'd say like, do you feel like there's this level of like you're never ever going to be good because you're always shooting with him? And I think people can twist that. Like if I mean like I could have taken it both ways and said, I'm shooting with Kyle, so now Kyle is the standard and is the level, and that's usually what I would say. But then you can get to a point where you say nothing is good until I reach that point, and you have to be realistic with yourself. I have to look at it with face value and say I haven't been shooting. My sport was never archery. I mean, I don't want to say never, but the sport that I committed to was not archery. And Kyle, like from walking age, was shooting a bow, and so that was his sport. And so
Yeah.
I chose soccer when I was younger. I love playing soccer. I played varsity high school ball for, all of high school. And then I played growing up. And so I became really proficient at that. If I had taken, I say this now, and I always say like, I wish I would have done archery earlier and really gotten serious about it earlier. I would have missed all those years of soccer, and I wouldn't give those up for anything for sure. But if I had taken that time to just shoot my bow a bunch, I can see like I'd be probably light years ahead from where I am now. But
Sure.
I think when you shoot with somebody at that level, it's really easy to slip off that slope and say, nothing I do is good enough, I guess. Right. And it was really cool for me to work on my mental game in that aspect and say, I get to shoot with this guy and he's going to bring me up, and there's going to be things that I give him that possibly, I mean, I wouldn't say that there was things that I, changed his game on, but there was, a couple days where he's like, oh yeah, I didn't really think about that. And I was kind of like, nice. I taught that.
You got one.
But it was a very cool experience to be able to shoot alongside him and say, and get immediate feedback. Like, what am I doing wrong here? What am I doing wrong here? And I would say he's like that top 1% of the 1% because of the way he shoots his bow and the way he's set up with his bow, right? I mean, he's got 30 ounces on his front bar. He's got 30 ounces on his back bar. He's the correct term. He's commanding it, but he's whacking the trigger. And he, like I said, is in that 1% of the 1%. So it can be hard sometimes to take advice. I don't want to say advice, but to take techniques from his shooting style because it's very different from everybody else, right? It's not really like riding a bike to where it's templated across each person and each person can do it,
Yeah.
But he's really receptive to that. He's really good at saying like, do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah.
because anybody that comes in the shop, he's never telling to punch the trigger. You know, he's never telling to throw 30 ounces on their front bar. He's very, very good at being a coach. And I don't think he thinks he is, but he's very good at taking people from step one and taking him into being a really, really good shooter. And so that was
Yeah.
really cool to be able to shoot alongside him and, you know, raise that bar for myself.
It's perspective, right?
Yeah.
It's having enough maturity to understand like where you're at in your, and then also your objectives, right? So like for me, I love archery. I know I'm not ever going to be competitive. Like I'm beyond it. Like I'm in my 40s, my mid 40s, you know what I mean? And it's not really even ultimate goal for me to be. I just want to progress individually. Like I want to get better.
Right.
I like shooting archery. I like the way it makes me feel. I've talked about it ad nauseum, but I love the feeling of releasing a perfect arrow and it hitting middle. It's like the biggest dopamine hit. I just love the feeling of it, right?
Yeah.
So I'm always chasing that. I don't have like grand ambitions to win Vegas or, you know, win an ASA shoot or anything like that. I just want to progressively get better with something that I care about. And then inevitably I want my shots in the field to be good. You know what I mean? I want to shoot an animal and I want to release a perfect arrow on an animal that I've put a bunch of time and effort into it. So like, I think your perspective of like what it is that you're chasing, you got to be realistic about it. But then, you know, the thing about shooting around and the same thing is perspective of shooting with somebody like Kyle. Like I know that I don't have the mental capacity to shoot a command shot.
Right.
I
tried.
can't.
Working a year and a half, I was like, I don't know, let's try this punching thing. Not doing it.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I had targets so bad probably 15 years ago that I was at the point was like, I think I'm just going to give up archery altogether because I'm not having fun. I'm hating it. Like every time I look at my bow, I get like stressed out, you know,
which is a really hard place to be in. Like
yeah.
I feel very fortunate. And I say this and I knock on wood now that I haven't gotten to that point yet. I haven't really hit this target panic wall, I guess, if you could call it. And I have like very, very, very minutely slipped. And I think there's very different forms of, you know, of target panic, obviously, rather than just punching the trigger. There's definitely a lot. Like there was, I guess you could say one, you know, slip up that I had was my shot timing. I think shot timing is so crucial, especially when you're shooting a hinge. I don't know if you're still shooting a hinge or not. I shoot a hinge. I hunt with a hinge. I shoot target with a hinge, and shot timing is so critical with a hinge. And any release in general, whether it's a wrist strap or a thumb button or a tension release, but a hinge specifically is so crucial to have timing on lock essentially. And that was something that I've learned a lot from him. Is he'd tell me immediately, like, dude, your shot timing is not out the window, but it's very, very inconsistent, and cleaning up a lot of like my release itself and how I grip the release and my anchor point was really, really beneficial to my shot timing for sure.
So yeah, okay. So to that point, maybe explain, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. Like if I get hung up in my release, it's not good. I get a point where I'm like, do I try to force this thing or do I let down? And then you get caught in this loop of like, I don't know. Cause a lot of the times if I force it, I feel like I still catch a 10. It might not be a solid 10, but I'll catch it, you know, rather than let down and start over. But let me ask you, so like how do you work on your shot timing? Like what's changed for you?
I would say that so a lot of people will kind of go to like just straight blank bailing. People will say that blank bailing is the best, which I agree. Blank bailing is one of the best things that you can do for yourself. One thing that really, really helped me was never shooting a shot. Is I would pull back on the target and I'd anchor and I'd aim, and I tried blank bailing with Kyle. I was like, hey, let's try this blank bailing thing. And he's like, your shot timing is really, really good when you blank bail. So I didn't really understand where I was getting hung up, where I would actually aim instead of just blank bailing. Because when I'm blank bailing, I know I don't have to hit anything. So my shot timing is, you know, it's impeccable. It's great every single time. But the second I throw an X on the wall, it becomes a lot harder, you know, because now I'm really, really trying to hit that spot. And I hold myself to a pretty high standard. I would say higher than probably most archers hold themselves to. You mean you are probably in that same category to where, you know, we expect a lot out of our setups and our equipment and our shooting abilities themselves. So I expect to hit the middle. And if I'm aiming at this wall or this blank wall, trying to hit it at, you know, 5 feet, I'm like, come on, it's 5 feet. I should be able to crush this thing. And if you don't, it really, really starts to aggravate me. So one thing that I did was I would put a Vegas face up against, a target at only 5 feet. Instead of aiming at it at 20 yards or
Yeah.
even 10 yards, 15 yards, I'd put this Vegas face up at a blank bailing distance and let my pin float. Because then now my pin is fully inside of this X ring or 10 ring, whatever standard you hold yourself to. Mine was the X ring. And so I could hold my pin within that X ring entirely and be okay with still hitting X, because that whole area now still counts as X. It doesn't matter if I hit the top end of it or the bottom end of it or the left side of it, it's still an X. And so that was really helpful. Another thing that was really helpful for me too in shot timing was changing how I gripped my release. I was really, really open-handed with my hinge. I wish I had my release here. I should have grabbed it, but I was really, really open-handed with my release. And I was able to feel the rotation of my hinge really well, but it was hard when I get hung up because now I'm all the way essentially extended, and it's hard to really get that thing to go without like leaning into your bow. And so I changed my grip to be really, really deep, not like quite into my knuckles, but I'm pretty much there to where I'm really just reefing on this thing. And essentially all I'm doing is just squeezing my hand together to get it to go off. So rather than actually rotating the release or doing like a clutch system where you let go of your front finger and pull with this finger where you're kind of doing this, instead of doing that, because that's how I learned to shoot a hinge, was the rotation. Now I'm just really just squeezing this release and getting it to go off. And that was really, really helpful for my shot timing. And that's really helpful for if I shoot any release, whether I go back to, I've been really debating going back to an index release just because it's so handy to have there on the hand. Archery is very much a pick your poison. It's very much a sport of pick your poison. And one thing I don't love about carrying a handheld around is, I do have it attached to a wrist strap, but it's just flinging all over the place. It's loud and clunky. A wrist strap is so easy because it's right there and it's so easy to get on and off of it, but I'm just never quite as consistent with it as I could be a hinge. And to me, accuracy is king. That's one thing I learned from Kyle is that accuracy is king above anything. And so I can be more accurate with a hinge. So, I can, that idea of just squeezing my hand instead of like actually, moving something, whether it's a hinge or a wrist strap or a thumb, just the idea of squeezing my hand has helped me a lot with my shot timing, because that's an easier motion for me to do with my whole hand rather than just one individual finger. Right? Just like my ring finger or just my thumb. If I can squeeze my whole hand together, I can, one, feel it, and two, I can control it a lot easier than just one finger, in my opinion. And I know I know that goes against probably what a lot of people say. It's really easy to control, one finger, but I feel like I can control my whole hand easier than I can just one finger. And so that was helped me a lot with shot timing.
Man, there's so many little intricacies of executing a shot, and everybody is so individualistic in how they execute a shot. My issues recently, I would say, has been I will build up too much tension in my forearm, and it kind of translates down into my hand, and I'll get balled up in my hand, like a little bit too much tension in my hand, and I'm not really able to relax that. I haven't shot an index finger release in a really long time, but there's part of me that's wondering if I pick one back up, just because I feel like I would be able to take a lot of the tension out of my hand and out of my forearm, because then you can pull with your wrist. You've got like the added muscle of being able to pull that thing back and hold it. Then I could relax my hand rather than holding on to a handheld release, where you get some tension in it. My biggest issue with an index finger release is I always had trouble finding my anchor point. It felt like my anchor point floated, which is the primary reason I went away from it. That and target pen, the flinching.
Right. No, I agree. One thing that was really helpful for me going to a handheld was finding an anchor point. Was be able to just, I can go there every time, and I know that's where I'm at every single time. With a wrist strap, it was really hard for me to find a place consistently every time. You can be, there's a lot out there, that anchor points don't matter, which to a degree, I would say anchor points don't matter if you get to a proficient enough level to where what your shot feels like. And whether you're looking through your peep and your tension in your back and in your arms is good, you don't really need an anchor point. But I think an anchor point for 90% of archers is so crucial to have. still to me to this day, I still feel like my anchor point is very crucial. Like I can float off my face and still make a pretty dang good shot and still hit fairly okay, but it grinds my gears to not have something connected to my face all the time. And a wrist strap is really hard for me to do that with. I can't ever find a good, solid, consistent place to be every time. And that, I worry more about that than I do anything else. Not when I'm worrying about my anchor point, I worry about, being connected to my face. And if I'm not connected to my face, that's like the first thing I go to is make sure I'm on my face.
Yeah.
And if I'm in the field worrying about that, that's 5, 6, 7 seconds that goes by that are very crucial, vital time.
Yeah. Yeah. The older I get, the more it's about feeling, right? Like I have to be able to feel it. And I also have to have like the muscle memory there associated with the feeling so that I can find it when I'm at my most nervous. So like if a bull elk walks out or I sneak up on a buck and he's bedded and I lean over, like I don't have the mental fortitude all the time to run through all my various steps and like check all the T's and, dot the I's. Like I don't have that. I know that in that moment, like I have to rely on feeling and muscle memory. Like I have to go back to just having executed thousands and thousands of arrows through the summer that is associated with, anchor point, muscle memory, and for me to execute that shot. Because if I leave it up to myself, like I'll flub it if I have to think through it.
Yeah, I will too. And you going back to like what you said with an arrow breaking clean and it hitting the middle being the biggest dopamine rush. The biggest dopamine rush for me, I haven't killed a lot of things in my life, but I've killed enough with a hinge. I've killed 3 things now with a hinge, and that feeling of breaking a shot on an animal itself and knowing like I did my whole part right. As long as I have the correct range, this thing is dead is again, one of the biggest dopamine rushes out there, in my opinion.
It's the best feeling.
Yeah, it's unmatched, honestly. Like to me, it's better than I'm a bow hunter first, archer second, so it's better for me. It's a bigger dopamine rush for me to click on an animal and release the shot and have it hit behind the shoulder rather than hit an X.
No, I totally get it. Let me ask you, so working in a pro shop, you probably get you did have a lot of bow hunters that would come in, get their bow set up.
A lot. During August. I had a guy come in, I think the Friday before the opener.
Sure.
And said, hey, I have a deer tag. My buddies wanted me to go out. I've never hunted in my life. I'm not even just archery hunted, but I've never hunted, period. And my buddies want me to go out with them. Can you get me set up? And it's just kind of like yeah, we can. Should I tell you to go out in the field? Probably not. But like, I'm going to do my part because I have no part in the law saying you can't go out, but I'm going to do my part and say, I set you up as good as I could in a matter of an hour. But anyways, we did.
I'm sure. Besides the fact that you would encourage people to get their bow out earlier and get
right now, please listening, start shooting your bow right now. Honestly, like the weather, especially if you live in Utah, the weather's been good now. Shoot your bow.
It's been ridiculously good. I read it. I mean, this is off topic. It's supposed to be 83 here this weekend.
Yeah, and it was like 45 yesterday.
That's ridiculous. 83 in March is criminal. I know.
That. I'm worried that we're going to get like a July winter or something.
Yeah. But when you have somebody that comes in to get their bow set up, like what matters most? Like if you're given like some initial coaching, you're setting their bow up. Maybe for anybody that would be listening, that's like, they're a bow hunter, they like to bow hunt, but it's not like their lifeblood, right? Like it might be some of us. Like what are some things that you think they ought to nail down? Like
I think having an anchor point is really crucial. I think having like just a solid place to get to every single time. Everybody anchors differently, but you won't really know that until you've been shooting for a good solid long time. That you say, my face is contoured differently. It's not going to be the same as his, but it's going to be relatively close. So we try to get guys. I mean, for anybody listening, like if you're struggling with an anchor point, usually I tell guys to go to, close their hand. Most guys are starting off with a wrist strap release, so it makes it easy to do this. But you're starting off with a closed fist, behind the trigger. This first knuckle, your index finger knuckles, should go right underneath your ear, right? There's a pocket right there, right behind your jaw. That's kind of a pressure point. your hand should hit that every time. And that's a good, consistent place to be to every single time. I tell guys to do that, and that's for them. They're always like, oh, that made a lot of sense. It's really easy to go there. So I would say an anchor point is really, really crucial. Probably more so, I would say draw length is huge. Draw length obviously is a huge factor to it. And then grip. Grip is one of those things that I see a lot of guys. Grip kind of playing into a posture, I guess you could say. I see a lot of guys, death grip in the bow, and that works for some guys, but like I said, you won't know that it works for you until you get further down the road. You're shooting quite a bit to know that this is how I grip the bow, and no other, every other grip I've tried just does not work. So this is my grip. But ideally, you're on the left side of your lifeline. Everybody has their lifeline on their hand. You should be on the thumb meat side there. I think that gets brushed under the rug quite a bit with guys. I think a lot of people try to, when they try to first time coach, a buddy or a friend or a family member into shooting for the first time, somebody who's, well versed in the archery industry has a family member come through and they buy a bow and they try to coach them. I think a lot of people worry too much about squeeze that trigger, look through the peep, line up your peep. And I think from get-go, you should blank bail. I think blank bailing is super helpful for a lot of beginners, just to work on your grip, your anchor, and your T pose is what I call. Your hips should be in line with each other. You should be shoulder width apart. Your feet should be in line with your shoulders, and you should have that good T pose when you're at full draw. I think that gets brushed under the rug too much. I think a lot of people, and still to this day, I see a lot of people who have been shooting for 5, 6, 7 years, and they don't have any of these things nailed down. They don't have a consistent anchor point. I mean, they get to full draw and they float their face and they really try to find the spot, and then they're hooked in there. And then they say, okay, that felt good. Well, now you're 15 seconds, into your shot, and everything is out the window. Your whole aiming process is now out the window, and your shot has broken down in that. Your shot should definitely go off in that first 5 to 8 seconds, I would say, of you being drawn back. And if you worry so much about your anchor point and your grip in that first 5 to 8 seconds, your shot just will never hit where it should. It's never going to feel like it should. There's a lot of guys that hold the bow for a long time. There's a lot of guys that shoot their shot within, 4 or 5 seconds of the bow being dropped back. But I think an anchor point and draw length and grip is huge for a lot of guys. I mean, there's pretty much every pro shop out there. If you're going to buy a bow at a pro shop, most guys there know what they're talking about. Fully, I put your trust into those guys. Those guys at pro shops know what they're talking about. They've seen it probably 10 times already that day. Put your trust into them and say, be willing to be coachable. I guess being coachable is a quality that's really hard to teach.
For sure.
And it's really hard for people to open up to it, especially when you get a lot of guys that come in and say, I can draw this 80-pound bow. I'm 32 inches of draw length. Give me this bow. I'm going to rip this thing back. Coming from a kid that's half their height saying you're doing something completely wrong, it can be hard to accept that. So I would say, be willing to accept change and be willing to accept coaching from your pro shops, because most of them know what they're talking about. I'd say 98% of them know what they're talking about. So it's called a pro shop,
Yeah, you may have to swallow some ego, myself included at times.
Yeah.
Yeah, great grip is really important. I spend a lot of time actually thinking about grip lately. I've tried a bunch of different grips. I mean, find your grip. I would say whatever it is, and I don't think that everybody's grip has to be the same. It just has to be, you have to have the ability to repeat it the exact same way every time, as far as feel, and then also the amount of pressure in it.
Right.
And then the angle of it. I'm notorious for I have a pretty low grip, low wrist grip. I get way down, into the palm, and I get way up into the grip. In fact, if you look right there, do you see that right there? That's those are from veins, by the way.
No way, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I got some fat shafts and I fletched them up in a 4-fletch.
Yeah.
and just the diameter, and with those veins, I get up into my grip, and if I get a little bit lackadaisical, I can run that knuckle up into it and run that vein across that
And
finger.
it'll let you know. It'll let you know quick.
It
It'll let
bites
you,
me. Yeah,
yeah,
I mean that's like a razor blade going across that finger.
yeah. It's certain veins. I mean, you shoot like I shoot tack veins, and you shoot a tack vein across your
It,
finger. It's not super fun.
it was a tack vein.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Point being, I realized that right there is a problem for me, and I played with my grip for about a week, trying to tuck that finger down, trying to maybe give it a little bit more high wrist to keep that finger out of the way. I don't aim the bow as well with a changed grip. Like, I'm really consistent with the grip that I have and was using, but I had this issue. So I ended up having to go to a 3-fletch, and I have to slightly offset the that vein so that it doesn't bite my finger. But I can clear the arrow, I can tune it well, and I'm way more consistent. But point being is, like, that's my grip. That's where I'm at. That's where I'm the most consistent. And I did a lot of looking at a lot of different people's grips to be like, what are they doing? Everybody's grip's a little bit different, but people way better than me, they're consistent in it, right? So I would say there's some like general practices, like you're saying, the lifeline, you don't want to death grip it, but I would say be okay with like playing with your grip and find the grip that's the most repeatable. Like, I think that's the most critical.
Yeah, one thing about grip that Kyle, really taught me was being able to relax when you have the bow at full draw, you should have this whole forearm basically relaxed at full draw. A lot of people will get, myself included, because I'm double jointed in that arm specifically, and so I will get really tense throughout my whole wrist or my whole forearm just because I'm making sure not to go overextended. And I get my forearm really, really tight, and I still struggle with this to this day. That grip, I mean, Kyle put it in a way that was easy for me to remember, but you should have that grip melt into your hand. That grip should fully melt into your hand. So that's why I think having really thin grips, like I shoot side plates on my bow. Because of that, I have fairly small hands, so I don't like to shoot very big grips because I don't feel like my grip really, really melts into my hand. So that's something that's really important with grip, is however you decide to do it. Like I said, there's a template, and I come from a shop. So I tell you, like, hey, you have this lifeline, be on this side of the lifeline. That everybody is going to end up being a little bit different. You have your knuckle right here, right? It should go there every single time. I'm not telling you that has to be where it is going to be for the rest of your life. It's just a good way to start. But whatever grip you end up finding, it should totally melt into your hand, and you should have basically no tension throughout your forearm there. And I think that's finding a grip that melts into your hand is going to be a lot easier to be repeatable and to be consistent, because it's just going to be that muscle memory feeling that you said earlier, where it all fits well. You get pulled back on a critter, you get pulled back on a bull, everything melts into place, and everything feels like it should be where it is. You
have to be able to find it without thought.
Yeah,
it has to be by feel. I should say, so I took the side plates off, so I just been shooting mine off the riser, and that's probably why that finger gets up in there. Because
I did the same thing too. I tried it without just the side plate, little shelf that comes up. I tried without it, and I found myself being very inconsistent with my grip. My grip would slide every now and then. I'd get up into there because I have a pretty low grip too. I'll get a lot of the grip down on my heel. But I'd find myself, even with grip tape, or like I'd go as far as skateboard tape too. It would still slip
into it,
and I'd get too far into it. And so just the side plate on the one side helped out a ton for sure.
Do you shoot side plates on both sides of the bow, or just one?
Well, I mean, like I do, but if I had to choose one side or the other, it's for sure the
pointer
side
finger.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, grips are so funny, man. For me, the side plates kind of push my finger out a little bit too much. I just feel weird. I don't know. Sure. It's like I said, everything is so individual, but as long as you can repeat it, and if you can tune it out, if you can tune out any issues that you have to your grip, as long as you're consistent with it, you should be good to go. But,
yeah, for sure. Yeah,
interesting. Do you want to talk some broadheads?
Let's do it.
Okay. Man, I might have to have you on again some other time, because I could talk form and function forever. But
yeah, I could do. I get really bad about going off on rabbit holes and tangents.
Yeah, I can too.
But
yeah, what do you? I was gonna ask you. So What do you think is more important for accuracy in regards to shooting a broad tipped arrow? Do you think it's more broadhead design, or do you think it's more like the tune of the arrow and the arrow itself?
For sure, the tune. Because I can get. I don't love them. I have a really strong opinion about fixed blades, but if my bow is tuned well, it'll shoot a fixed blade pretty damn good. Like it's
Sure.
not. It's gonna fly pretty good. It's gonna have some drag down range. It's gonna get pushed a little more in the wind. You know, the I guess the bullet points of a fixed blade, but it's going to shoot pretty dang good. And so I would definitely say the tune of your bow is by far more important than the actual broadhead design. Now, the broadhead design does play a lot into how the broadhead design and its actual flight characteristics can play a lot into how a bow is tuned. Let's say your bow isn't tuned super well. You slap a big fixed blade on the front of that thing, and it's not going to fly well at all. A SEVR is really easy to fly good. I had this last year, or 2 years ago, whatever year the lift was. I think it was last year, the 2024 season. I had a couple of problems with my lift. Everybody that shot a lift before, I'm sure knows what problems. And I didn't have a bow. I didn't have my bow shooting like consistently really well for me until first week of August. And I was crapping the bed. I was freaking out. Like, I don't have this thing hyper tuned like I usually do. I am really worried going in the field with this. And I think, like I said, first weekend of August, I was like, well, to hell with it. I got to shoot broadheads. I got to make sure they're flying well. And I slapped one on at 80 yards and it dimed at 80 yards. And I was like, okay, I'm okay with this. And I knew that my bow wasn't super hyper tuned. The beauty behind, our blades being fully inside of the ferrule here is you get a lot of downrange accuracy with that. Blades being fully inside the ferrule is going to help a lot with an untuned bow. You can take pretty much any untuned bow out there, and it's going to relatively fly with your field tips. It's going to hit pretty much dead nuts with your field tips in that, 60 yards and in, even 70, 80 yards and in, if it's relatively tuned. It doesn't have to be fully hyper tuned to be shooting well. So yes, a broadhead design plays a lot into that, but more so the tune of your bow, I think, helps a lot in broadhead flight.
Yeah. Do you think, it's shooting a mechanical, so it seems like there's like two camps. There's guys that are just absolutely diehard fixed blade, and then there's guys that are, mechanical. There's not too many people, it feels like, that are in between, but what misconceptions do you think if somebody is, because I've been in this camp before, I was diehard fixed blade. I shot fixed blades for years and years and years, and it was due to, I lost an animal. It would have been 20 some years ago, 26 years ago. But, and looking back on it, I think shot location, impact position is way more important than, the broadhead on the end of it. But
Sure.
Looking back on it, if I'm being completely honest with myself, I don't know exactly where that hit. I would say obviously it didn't hit where I thought it hit, or I would have had a dead elk,
because
right?
the animal would be on the wall, right?
Yeah, I would have a dead elk. It was a spike, so he wouldn't have been on the wall. But at the time, at the time I was like, it's got to be the broadhead. And to me, like, I looked at that shot and I was like, yeah, that hit behind my pin. It hit right behind the shoulder. That's the funny thing too. I could get sidetracked, but since I started working this job and we film a lot of hunts, right? I can tell you unequivocally, where you think you hit the animal
is never close, ever.
I'm not going to say never, but I'm going to say even the shot that you feel the most confident in, that you think you know where it hit, it may not be the case. And I would have been that guy, because I've seen it happen time and time again. I'm like 100% behind the shoulder. I look at the video and I'm like, nope, not behind the shoulder.
Being in the shop, there's a lot of guys that come in and say that. I came in, and the guys would come in, a weekend after the hunt or 2 weekends after, and say, I shot this buck with this broadhead. I'm never shooting it again. And I ask him, like, where'd you hit it? And they tell me, dude, I pumped it right in the wheelhouse, right behind the front shoulder. And my first question to them is always, did you get it on video? And they're like, well, no, I was shooting it, and it's like, well, you don't really actually know then. Like, it's not, you can't ever be 100% certain until you get hands on the animal, or, like I said, watch a video and see where you hit it.
Yeah.
But anyway.
And I'm not saying that the case for everybody. I'm just saying for me, like I've had to eat crow a number of times because it was not exactly where I thought it was. But
Right.
what do you think some of the, like if somebody's on the fence that, if they're a diehard fixed blade person, what would you say to them as far as like convince them to shoot a mechanical? What would you say the advantages are?
I think for sure your blood trails are going to be the blood trails and actual broadhead flight are going to be your biggest things. One factor that I think a lot of people don't think about that's actually really important to me is forgiveness in a broadhead, not when making a bad shot, but not when like as far as actual flight goes, but when you make a bad shot. I hit a critter. Once that arrow's left my bow, I have no control over it. I have no control of what that animal does, whether he spins, reacts, faces me, jumps forward 5 feet. I've seen numerous animals that I've shot at, jump 5 feet, 6 feet in front of where my arrow actually was, and so let's say he doesn't jump that far and I hit him really far back. With the mechanical, I'm now pushing through non-vital areas, but I'm pushing through a lot more non-vital areas than I am with a fixed blade. I look at, in my eyes, this can get really controversial, but in my eyes, a fixed blade is no better than a field point. It's not that much bigger than like even your veins. Like your veins are going to cut a bigger hole than your actual broadhead will if you're shooting most fixed blades out there. There's a lot of big fixed blades out there that are kind of going to cut a pretty good hole, but mechanicals are really, really forgiving when you make a bad shot like that, where you hit far back and you now are in no vitals. You're going to get a lot more blood on the ground. Yes, hemorrhage is one of those things. Hemorrhage is, the sole factor to actually killing an animal, but hemorrhage, if you can get blood on the ground, I had my dad last year shot a buck, not in the greatest of areas, but shot it with a SEVR and had a ton of blood on the ground, and that buck 100% just died from blood loss. He had a ton of blood get on the ground, and if you can get blood on the ground, your chances of recovery go way, way, way up. Even just with a little bit of blood on the ground, even if you make a bad shot, if it doesn't go through the area you want to. So that being said, broadhead or mechanicals are typically always bigger too than most fixed blades on the market, and so having a bigger hole is going to get more blood on the ground. I look at it as, yes, hemorrhage is really important, but getting blood on the ground to me is more important because I can put any broadhead through the pump house as long as like I said, I'm not promoting this, but I can put a field tip in the right spot and it's going to do its job. It's going to kill the animal. It doesn't do me any good if this bull goes 100 yards, tips over dead, and there's no blood on the ground, right?
Yeah.
So I have a lot of guys come to me and say, I need an exit hole, and in my eyes, you can't guarantee an exit hole no matter what broadhead you're shooting. I don't care what broadhead you're on. It is. There's definitely ones that have a better chance at getting a pass through than others. Like our 1.5, that's an awesome broadhead for that because it's going to have only 1.5 inch deploying blades, so you can penetrate a lot better and give yourself a better chance of a pass through, but it's never guaranteed. And as long as I do my part right, I can usually always guarantee a front hole. I can always guarantee an entrance hole. So I'm a big believer in shooting big mechanicals. I shoot 1 3/4. I shoot our 1.75 and our 2.0s. Like I shot an elk this year with a 2.0 and it performed phenomenally well because I'm a big believer in big entry holes because it gets lots of blood on the ground. If I can get an exit hole, there's a bonus for me. I can get, 2 big gnarly 2-inch holes on each side of it. That's awesome. But I'm a big believer in just getting a big entry hole to get more blood on the ground. Cause like I said, it's not going to do you any good to get no blood on the ground. So I think that's something that's really, really, really beneficial going from a fixed blade to a mechanical is blood loss. Getting blood on the ground is one of the biggest factors for sure.
That's I mean, everybody has a value judgment call to make, right? When they buy a broadhead or they select a broadhead, and you've got to decide ultimately, like, what are your primary objectives, your values? What do you hold near and dear to your heart?
Right.
I've kind of landed on I want my arrow to hit as close to behind my pin as possible in a field situation where I'm nervous, I'm shaking, I'm probably torquing my bow, I'm probably shooting uphill or downhill. The closer or the better the likelihood of that broadhead landing where I intend to aim, the better I'm going to be. So for me,
Yeah.
in a situation like that, a mechanical is going to be more forgiving. To form flaws, to torque, shooting uphill, downhill, it's just going to be more forgiving. And then I'm at a point where I'm like, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I've had better blood trails with a SEVR than I ever did with a fixed blade. I shot a lot of animals and I killed a lot of animals with fixed blade. I very, very rarely got good blood trails. I found those animals, but there were times when you were, pin prick following blood. I think of a bull that my buddy Chris Neville shot. Like we followed that thing for probably 300 yards, and it was a great shot. Double lung, died, full pass through. He was shooting a helix fixed blade head.
Mm-hmm.
Worked great, just didn't bleed. But I'm of the same opinion. Like I want blood on the ground. I want to be able to find it.
Right. Yeah.
And
Like it doesn't do you any good if you pump house this thing and it
Mhm.
goes 100 yards into some really, really deep timber where if you don't have any blood on the ground, you're never going to find it. I mean, I've crawled into some hell holes, honestly. There was a bull that my Uncle Preston shot last year, and he'd shot it like 10 minutes before dark. We didn't really know where the shot was, and we kind of heard the bull coughing, and so we're like, let's just give him an hour and just sit for a second. So we sat for an hour, started going up, and wasn't finding a ton of blood. We found good blood, but wasn't like super super great. But by the time we found this bull, he'd only went maybe 100 yards from where we shot him, but he'd crawled into this absolute hellhole of a spot that we would have walked right past, right? And so it's not beneficial to you at all to pump something and not get any blood on the ground. And mechanicals, SEVR included, but regardless of what mechanical you shoot, you're gonna get more blood on the ground. Like it's just plain and simple. Most guys, I would say, when they come from a fixed blade to a mechanical, always will comment on blood trails for sure being better. They're easier to see, it's easier to follow, and you're just gonna get a lot more blood on the ground. Whether you make a good shot or a bad shot, you make a bad shot, you're still getting more blood on the ground.
Yeah. I will say, when it comes to blood and blood loss and blood trailing, like it's not that is not my primary decision on why I choose a mechanical and a SEVR head. The primary reason is accuracy. I just want it to hit as close to where my pin is on the animal as possible. I've kind of been on record and said I would prefer that my arrow hits behind the pin but on the vitals and does not get a pass through than I would a arrow that gets a full pass through that's a foot left or right of where I intended it to hit, right? Yeah. So for me, that's it. And then, penetration, I've never really had any issues with penetration. So for me, it's like a moot point, right? And I think it's in large part design of the Broadhead where you guys have the blades that sit within the ferrule and they slide back. I think they penetrate great.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of people put penetration kind of as their number one. I see it when I was working at the shop. A lot of people come in and say, I want to pass through every single time. And like I said before, I just can't guarantee you a pass through. I'm just not going to stand here and say that a broadhead is going to guarantee a pass through. I can tell you that our heads are really good at doing it, and most people that shoot a good broadside shot within a respectable distance are getting a pass through each time. But I'm not going to stand here and tell you that I'm going to guarantee you a pass through because it's out of my control. There's a lot of people that come in and say I want to pass through every single time, and so I'll just recommend the 1.5 or the 1.5 hybrid because it's going to give you your best opportunity to pass through. And I think accuracy and forgiveness in a bad shot are pushed so far under the rug that people lose sight of what's actually important in a broadhead. It's 100% it's accuracy. At the end of the day, it doesn't do you any good if you can't hit the broadside of a barn. Like if you can't hit anything what you're aiming at, it's not worth shooting the arrow, in my opinion. It's
for sure.
And so if you can get accuracy nailed down in your setup, you can put anything in the spot that you want to. If you can put it behind the spot where it needs to go, if you can put it on the X, it's gonna kill.
Yeah.
Accuracy for sure is, for me, absolutely accuracy is king. Like before I even started working here, I was shooting SEVR for, like I said,
Hmm.
6 years, and that was the biggest thing to me. Another thing too that's really important to me is durability for sure. Not as far as like um I think people get blades kind of mixed up into that. They want their blades to be virtually indestructible, and I just don't think any blade, when you make them that thin, when you make something razor sharp and have to make it, thin enough to cut something, it's not going to
Hmm.
be the most durable thing on the market, right? I think our blades are really really durable, and we make them a little thicker to account for that, especially our bleeder blades. I've have had hardly anybody complain about bleeder blade durability, but our broadheads being fully titanium, it was a huge grab for me. I
Hmm.
don't like to shoot any component unless it's stainless steel or titanium, and that's really important to me when building an arrow. I don't really build an arrow based off of a spec. I don't build an arrow trying to get to 415, 420, 430 grains. I just build an arrow that I know has good components in it and is going to fly well for me. And I'll kind of stick it at that. Whether it ends up being a 500 grain arrow or a 400 grain arrow, I'm just going to build it based off of componentry. And SEVR is one of those things that I don't want to skimp on in a broadhead. I don't want to skimp
Hmm.
on, durability of a broadhead. I don't want it to, on impact, completely fold in half once
Right.
I hit. And so titanium is super super strong, and that was real. And it being a one piece
Hmm.
constructed titanium ferrule also adds in its durability a ton, and that was a really big factor for me going to shoot a SEVR. Was
Yeah.
it's titanium, it's super strong. Practice mode obviously is awesome. Being able to confidently go into the field knowing that this broadhead's going to hit exactly where it should is key for me. That's going back to accuracy being king. The fact that I can take this, even regardless if it doesn't shoot with my field tips, regardless, I can put this set screw in and literally sight into this thing. Like,
Hmm.
that is, I know when I take the set screw out and I go into the field with it, it's going to hit exactly where I've sighted into it. It doesn't matter if it's with field tips or not. If it's grouping well and I can sight into it, it's going to hit where it should.
Yeah. Blades are funny. I even when I shot fixed blades, I shot broadheads that I could replace the fixed blade itself, the actual blade itself.
Right.
I I don't fully understand like the, and I like Bill that makes iron wills. It's not a shot at Bill at all. And admittedly, like I have not purchased any of their broadheads and shot them. I don't know how hard they are or easy they are to resharpen, but to
Sure.
me, that never made total sense. Like how many guys can even sharpen a knife? Not many, myself included. Like
Yeah.
I can't put a razor blade edge on a knife, right? What would make me think that I could retouch a broadhead to the point where I would feel completely confident in that thing being razor sharp or as razor sharp as a brand new from the factory sharpened
Right.
blade. So to me, that never made sense. I was like, I'm just going to put new blades on it, even if I shoot fixed blades. And
Sure.
then same with the mechanical. I love the fact that your guys' broadheads, you can lock them in and shoot them. I'm still replacing the blades before I go hunting with that thing
Yeah,
because if it's
for
gone
sure.
into a target, I don't want any dullness on that. I want it as completely sharp as I can get it. And so I'm going to put new blades on it. It's a relatively easy fix. I'm
Right.
just going to go ahead and do it. I want a brand new sharp blade. So for
Yep.
that one for me is like always been a little bit of a beef. Like you should be shooting a brand new, super sharp broadhead
Yeah.
anytime you're going to run that thing through an animal.
No, absolutely. And most mechanicals on the market don't have replaceable blades.
Mhm.
It's something that I think is really that stands out a lot for us is being able to replace the blades because it's so simple to replace them. Most other companies have, springs or clamps or things holding the blades into where you could not replace them at all. They're just part of the ferrule. And ours being completely separate from the ferrule to replace them makes it so it takes a matter of 30 seconds to replace the blades. I don't see why you wouldn't replace them if you shot them and go in with razor sharp blades. I'm of the opinion that if a broadhead goes through a critter and it's in my freezer, it's on my wall, the broadhead did what it was supposed to.
Yeah,
And
I'm
like I
retiring
that's
it. Yeah.
I put it on the wall. There's a lot of
Mhm.
guys that come to me and say, hey, I bent a blade. And it's like, well, is it on the ground? And they say, well, yeah, it's on my wall actually. And I'm like, well,
Yeah,
I think it
did
did
its
its
job.
job then, but you can replace the blades if you really, really want to. And I think
Sure.
that's something that definitely stands out for us.
Yeah.
I don't
You,
ever, I don't ever pull a, I don't ever pull a bullet out of a chest cavity and say, dang, that sucks. I
yeah.
can't use that again. You know,
Yeah, I want to reload that thing.
yeah, I did
Yeah.
its job, right?
Yeah,
So
it did. Yeah, that's how I look at it. What's your current take on arrows and arrow builds? I know it seems like there's this, pendulum, and I'm old enough to have been through a few of them. I remember back in the day, it was ultralight arrows. I think the first bull I ever killed was I want to say it was a gold tip,
it's probably
hunter.
why.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was probably 395 grains,
Yeah.
maybe 400 grains.
Yeah.
Super light, shooting out of a Q2, killed that bull at 48 yards, I think. And we've kind of gone through a couple of these now, and it feels like we're moving back towards, this like ultralight, ultra fast arrow. What's your take? Build me a perfect arrow.
Um, I think, like I said before, in my eyes, a perfect arrow is one that has good componentry for one, and two is gonna hit behind the pin. I actually just got off a call before we got on this with a guy for customer service related things. He said, I'm really, really torn between shooting 100 grain and a 125 grain field tip / broadhead. And I told him it is so worth your time and money to buy 3 packs of 100 grains and 125s and shoot them and see which one shoots better. Because at the end of the day, whichever one shoots better is what you should shoot. Like I said, whether it weighs 400 grains or 500 grains. If I had to give you a perfect weight range for me, honestly, it's the arrow I'm shooting right now. It's an Easton 5.0. I've got it right here. I'm shooting a 4 fletch of tack vanes on the back that I'm shooting the 225s. I've got a pin bushing in the back there with pin knocks, and then I've got a collar with a 100 grain point in the front of it. And that arrow in a 300 spine ends up being 415. And I think that arrow, that puts my bow, my drawing thumb, like 27 3/4. I shoot anywhere from 75 to 77 pounds just because I'm a short guy, and I can get that arrow going like 296 to 298. And that to me is a perfect arrow build in my opinion. I think that arrow it gives me enough kinetic pounds that I'm comfortable with. It gives me enough kinetic energy, and it still has enough momentum behind it. You start going lighter, and you lose a lot of momentum behind an arrow. I think tune of a bow and an arrow goes hand in hand with momentum behind an arrow. If you have an arrow that's fishtailing out of the bow and not shooting well, you lose a lot of that momentum. And so I think tune, in my eyes, like I said, tune is more important than an actual arrow build. Getting an arrow to shoot accurately every single time is by far more important. But if I had to pick like a weight range, I'm going to be in that anywhere from 410 to probably 420. I usually don't go anymore. I've kind of gone lighter as the years have gone by. I started with I shot an FMJ for a while at like 515 grains. I couldn't clear like 70 yards. It sucked. I love it. So that year I switched like a month before season. I shot a standard Axis. I think that arrow was like 480. Shot well. I killed a cow with that. So I went lighter and went to like a 435 grain or 440 grain arrow. I didn't end up killing anything with that arrow, but I didn't have any issues with the arrow. Went to an Axis long range with a titanium half out on the end of that, and it put me at 428, I think was that arrow, and I shot a deer at 90 yards with that and crushed it. It was awesome. I had no problems with that. So I was like, I'm just gonna keep going lighter and see, where where the tipping scale is. And so I've ended on this arrow. I shot a cow this year with that arrow, and I shot her frontal and had no issues with it.
Gotcha.
So,
you like the 175 or the 2, huh?
I do. Like I said, I'm a big believer in big entry holes. I think the 1.5 hybrid is really, really almost a perfect broadhead. I don't want to say almost. I think it's a perfect broadhead. I think it has its place for sure. For if you want, like I tell guys, if you want one broadhead to do it all, the 1.5 hybrid and the 1.75 hybrid are absolutely my go-to, because I can send a 1.5 hybrid, I'd feel confident sending this broadhead right here, a 1.5 hybrid through a moose. I have no issue with that. And then anything smaller than that, I would shoot a 1.75 hybrid, an elk, a deer, an antelope, pigs, all that sort of stuff. I'd shoot a 1.75 hybrid, and I think it's absolutely the way to go. I was never. I have a very strong fixed blade opinion. I don't like fixed blades, and so before working for SEVR, the hybrids came out, and I was really skeptical of it. I didn't want to like it. I was really worried it wouldn't fly good. A lot of broadhead companies if they make a hybrid, they get the downside of a fixed blade, because they end up making their fixed blades their bleeder blades essentially too big. And you get now the downside of a fixed blade. It's loud. It doesn't fly good in the wind. It's hard to tune. And that was the design purpose behind our bleeder blades, is that they're small enough to where they're not compromising. You're not losing anything in the wind or, for penetration and whatnot, but it's still giving you just that little bit of extra pry is essentially what I say. When guys tell me, what's the addition of a bleeder blade? You're going to take your 1.5 inch cut right here, this 1.5, and those bleeder blades are just going to pry it open. It's not necessarily going to give you a whole nother cutting channel or cutting diameter. It's just really going to pry open that existing cut. We call that stretch cut technology. And it gives you more of that square shaped hole and that diamond shaped hole rather than just a slice. It's really hard to close that up.
Gotcha.
Really good to get blood on the ground with that. And so I think like the perfect broadhead is a 1.5 hybrid and a 1.75 hybrid purely because of that. I didn't want to like the hybrid. I shot one at an antelope and I was completely blown away at even I shot it with a 1.5 hybrid and I was blown away at the hole only being an 1.5 inch cut. 1.5 inches is no bigger than a lot of fixed blades out there.
Yep.
So I wasn't expecting a whole lot out of it, and it punched a good hole in this antelope. It was awesome.
Yeah, I shoot the 1.5s. I've shot both as just the standard 1.5s, and then more recently, probably last year or 2 years, I guess, I've been shooting the 1.5 hybrid. And I agree with you. To me, that's like the perfect broadhead. I get great flight out of it.
Right.
I get good penetration because it's got a little less blade, but I also, it cuts and it does the job. But you do have me thinking, yeah, maybe we'll bump up and do a 1.75 or a 2.
Right.
My issue with those, and it's not even an issue because I haven't substantiated it or not, but like in the back of my mind, I always thought, you got longer blades, you also have a longer ferrule, right? So at that point, there's potentially like, strength, anytime you got a longer ferrule, it's got to be stronger.
Sure.
The other thing it also has to be more consistent as far as straightness goes because it's longer.
Right.
So then I'm thinking, the strongest, most consistent in terms of straightness is probably the shorter. And I feel like the 1.5 gives me enough cutting diameter. Definitely if I hit where my pin is, I'm going to be successful. So that's kind of why I've stuck with it. But
right. No, absolutely. I think that's super, super valid. I think that's why I love that we have multiple
options,
broadheads and options for broadheads, because guys that are shooting, out of a tree stand sub 30 yards at whitetail, can sacrifice a little bit in that, whether it's durability or, flight pattern. They're shooting sub 30 yards. They're going to shoot that 2-inch head because you're going to punch through pretty much anything at that distance. I think every broadhead in our line has its place. And I think every broadhead in our line is really good at what it's supposed to do. That if you want a middle ground for everything, that 1.75 is a really good way to go. If you're lower poundage or are a kid shooting, that 1.5 is a great way to go. If you're strictly a tree stand whitetail guy, like 2 inches is phenomenal. But each broadhead can do the job of another. It's just going to be like going back to guys wanting penetration. If a guy wants penetration, shoot that 1.5 like that all day long. That one is going to penetrate better than any of the heads in our lineup. If you're looking for something to have, if you want one broadhead to fill your quiver and you're a Western guy and you're like, I'm shooting elk, deer, and antelope, and I want a broadhead to do literally everything. I don't want to change stuff. Shoot the 1.75 hybrid or the 1.5 hybrid. You can't go with any of the heads that we have.
It's always fun to hear people's personal arrow builds, and where they're at and where they land. I keep going back to, I want a bow that shoots 285 to 290 feet per second. I want and it's just, again, it's my specs, right? So 30 1/4 inch draw, 70 pounds. I typically land like 450 to 480, 90 grains maybe in that
Right.
range to get a bow that's set up, and I just keep going back to it. But yeah, it's always fun. I'm always curious as to what people choose and why. So
I started shooting a four fletch
mhm.
probably 3 years ago, and I know there's a lot of studies now, especially that have come out
Mhm.
saying that four fletch isn't super beneficial. It can help. It can't help. I know that a four fletch is louder. I know that a four fletch has more
More drag.
surface area, more drag. But it's one of those things that like I've shot it, and going back to just shooting your bow, like I have shot a four fletch now for 3 or 4 years, and I don't really care to change it because I know that it works. I
Mhm.
know that it has worked for me in the past. I could probably go to a three fletch and be just fine. I could probably go to a lower profile van. I'm shooting the tack driver 225 on there. I could probably get away with a 2 inch if I wanted to. But I just haven't really cared to change it because I know that it works, and I know that this arrow, this 5.0 is probably the arrow that I will shoot for the foreseeable future. Honestly, like,
Yeah.
I love this setup. I love the veins in the back here. They're super quiet. I'm a huge believer in quiet arrows kill over a quiet bow,
Yeah.
100%. And I just haven't really cared to change it at all. I know it shoots well. I know it gets me the speeds that I look for out of my draw length, and I don't think there's any reason to change it.
Yeah. It's funny. People, I mean, a lot of it is your like personal choice and what you have confidence in. I shot four fletch forever and ever, and then the James Yates's arrow study, which you've probably been seeing him if
Yep.
you've been over there to Easton, he's been doing another round of it. But
Yep.
I looked essentially like his, the difference in drag versus the stability offers, so this loss in speed versus like the actual stability and accuracy, like that relationship. I went back to a three fletch, and I went to the 275 tack drivers.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I've been shooting with a little bit of helical on them, and I've liked them super quiet veins, but yeah, in the back of my head, when I hear somebody like Tim Gillingham or I hear Kyle say, "Hey, four fletch is just more accurate,"
You're
it
like,
always puts that little
yeah.
thing in the back of my head. I'm like, really? Maybe I
Yeah,
need to.
I that was the reason that I did it too. Like I fletched up a three fletch and fletched up a four fletch and shot them because at the end of the day, I want stuff to shoot with broadheads well.
Sure.
That's my goal out of my hunting bow. And so I shot them with broadheads, and I felt like I could get a four fletch to be a little more forgiving with a broadhead specifically. Field
Sure.
tips, I wouldn't really tell. But with a broadhead specifically, when I say forgiving, I mean like that I made a bad shot and it still relatively hit, or still relatively, because anytime you, even with a tuned bow, anytime that you add a broadhead on the front of that arrow, if it's got exposed blades, it's your misses and your mistakes are very much exaggerated more than they would be with a field tip. So you're going to see it more. And so I
Sure.
wanted an arrow to still correct that even when I made a bad shot. And I felt like the four fletch did that for me. It's been a long time since I've tested that, and now maybe I probably couldn't tell a difference. I don't think I can shoot the difference out, but
Hmm.
in the back of my mind, I was like, this is better.
Yep.
So I just did it,
Yep.
and
I
I
get it.
I haven't changed it because I feel like it works, and
For sure.
confidence is huge, especially in the mental game. If you feel like it works,
It works.
whether it works or it doesn't, it works.
It works. If you feel like it works, it works.
It works.
That's what it boils down to. Like if you're confident in it, when you pull it back and let it go, I mean that's everything. You gonna be at Vegas?
I unfortunately am not. I wanted
Okay.
to be this year. I may still drive down for the day with my family. My last year was the very first year that I went down there. Had a blast with my lovely fiance,
Yep.
and my parents. We had a good time going down there, and so we've thought about driving down there. I think Kyle's gonna win, and so I want to go watch Kyle
Me
win.
too.
I
Dude,
think
he's on a mission. He's a man. He's a man possessed.
I do too. I think he's gonna win, and so I want to go down there and watch him win.
Yeah, he's been
But
fun to watch lately. I
yeah,
mean, the last so watching him come out at ASA and then watching him come out for Lancaster. In fact, I was watching it with my oldest kid, and I was like, "Kyle's gonna win this. He just looks like he's in the
he's
zone.
just dialed. Yeah,
He's
he's got.
just absolutely on an epic run right now."
Yeah,
And
it's
I mean,
really cool to see certain tournament archers, it has been hard to see Vegas be pushed back as far as it is, because now
Mm-hmm.
you're getting into 3D
Yeah.
season. But it's been really, really cool to see what archers are out there that can still perform at the top level going from straight, because all these guys have different bows. None of these guys
Yep.
are shooting the same 3D bow and indoor bow. And it's really cool to see the guys that can go from bow to bow and still be at the top. And I like I said, I texted Kyle yesterday and I was like, hey, how are things going? How's the bow shooting? He's like, I got both bows pounding right now.
Yeah.
And it's a good feeling, you know? And so
So you
it's
just,
see
yeah.
the archers be able to do that. I wish I could do that, honestly.
It's like any sport, man. You get momentum and you get confidence behind you, and it's just like it feels like you just can't stop, you know. So
Sure.
I would say his chances have got to be very good.
I think he's definitely got
Yeah.
a good shot at it for sure. He's got my vote, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Good dude. Well, hopefully you come down and get a watch. Yeah.
You're gonna be down there
Yeah, I'm gonna shoot. I signed up.
the
Yeah,
30, or are you gonna shoot the hunting bow this time?
I'm shooting my hunting bow again. I've been shooting that Arc 34. Yeah, I got it at 71 pounds, I think. And you know, my shooter shape is what's that?
Bow hunter flight.
Yeah, boner flights. Yep.
Cool.
So yeah, I've been shooting, I would say averaging I shoot like one good full complete game a day, like where I actually keep score, you know,
Yeah.
I monitor it. And then I'll just shoot a bunch of arrows, just work like try to take every arrow by arrow and just see how it goes. But I would say I'm somewhere in the neighborhood of like 288 to 290, 394, depending.
That's awesome.
I'm like right there in that realm. So my goal is to shoot better than last year, and that's the only goal that I've got. So
Which is what it should be. Absolutely. I think
yeah,
it's good to have the goal to shoot better each day, whether it's score wise or mentally wise. Like it's good to have some sort of
yep.
goal of shooting at least better. You know, par or better is what I say for sure.
Yeah, my goal is to just do better than I did last year. Again, just make myself, you know, feel uncomfortable and grow a little. And then what it really has allowed me to do is like you're practicing for an event that you spent money on, right? So you want to practice because I spent money on this thing. Like
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
going to go,
Yeah.
which is forcing me to practice and practice with intent, which you don't really get all that often unless it's something that you're into and you do. So it's like running, right? Getting in shape. Like if you don't have a goal to like run a race to get in shape, it's really hard just to motivate yourself day in and day out just to go out and run, right? To get in shape for something like a hunt. But if you sign up for a half marathon or a marathon, it's like I spent money on this thing. Like I have to give it a full effort. I have to show up and show face. And so I might as well track this thing and do as well as I possibly can.
Right.
And I think that's what I've used Vegas for. I wished I had more time to sign up and do other shoots that were local, but my kids get really busy on the weekends. But yeah, I'm just gonna go down and see how it goes. I'm gonna try as hard as I can.
I think anybody who's involved in archery enough should absolutely experience it one time. I know it's
For
kind
sure.
of all to go down there and do it, and it can be expensive to do it, but I think everybody should experience it. It'll do indoor or not indoor, but target archery in period does wonders for your archery game, and it's. I mean, if you allow it, can start a very good rabbit hole to go down to,
Mhm.
one that like is just is never ending. It seems like,
For
but
sure.
it's so good for your mental game and your shooting game. Like I immediately figured out when I started shooting Vegas games when I was very very new into the target stuff. I started shooting Vegas games and I picked my hunting bow up and shot it like that much better. It
For
just
sure.
everything just clicks and everything feels better, and you get in a much better shooter shape. Shooter shape is absolutely a real thing. I took like a week off or a couple of days off from shooting my target bow, and I went and picked that thing back up, and I was like, oh my gosh, this
Yeah,
sucks.
I
So
know.
it'll do wonders for sure. Going
Yeah,
I actually going
shooter
to
shape is a real thing. Yeah.
absolutely is. And a lot of guys, my dad is. I envy people like my dad because he can shoot once for 6 months, 2 months, and and
That's
he's
not me.
he's unstoppable. You know, he can still
Yeah.
shoot. He won't shoot the best of Vegas games, but he gets behind a critter and it's dead. I know
Yeah.
if it's in front of him, it's dead for sure. So
Yeah. No, it's fun, man. It should be good. I love having something to work towards, and then I love that it's forced my hand to like work on little details of your shot, and then to know like what a good shot feels like. Because if you go out in your backyard and you shoot an arrow, you're not really paying attention to like what it feels like to shoot a
Yeah.
good arrow.
Yeah. A lot of people will say that if it hits the middle, it's a good shot.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. Then you don't actually start to take, like inventory of what it felt like to shoot a good shot and why the result was what it was, and then
Right.
try to evaluate and fix it. So it's definitely done that for
And
me.
the more you can find that feeling, the better off you'll be. The more you can consistently get a hold of that feeling, the better archer you'll be. 100%.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I'm bummed you're not shooting, but hopefully you make it down for a
I know I'll
day.
come down. If I come down, I'll definitely swing by and come say hi.
Come say what's up.
It's definitely going to be on the radar next year for sure. So,
hey man, I appreciate you jumping on today and all your time. Hope you have a good rest of your work day, and
you as well.
Stay in touch. If people are listening, you can follow Sawyer on Instagram. What's your
Sawyer T? So my name Sawyer, the letter T, and then Dubb is my Instagram.
Yep.
I usually post on there unless I kill something or I'm shooting a Vegas game. I usually post it on there just because I like to keep myself accountable. I like to make myself be accountable for the world. If you need anything for SEVR stuff, you can reach out to our customer support email box. It's support@severbroadheads.com. I'm usually the one that responds to those unless I'm out of office, on a event or on a trip or something like that, or I'm hunting. I'm usually the one to respond to those. If you have any questions, concerns, problems with broadheads, or if you just want to talk broadheads, we did for an hour and a half, just talk broadheads. I can talk about them all day with anybody. So if you want to reach out to that, you can. Our Instagram is just SEVR Broadheads. Give that a follow. That's basically it.
And buy some SEVRs. They got my vote of confidence. So if you've been on the fence and you've kind of been considering, just buy one, shoot it, see what you think.
You can buy one. You can buy one and just try it. You can buy our heads individually. Hybrids are $19.99 and two blades are $16.99. Buy them individually. Just try one.
Yep. Yeah, just buy one and try it. And then, when you decide to buy 20 or 30, you can do that too.
Absolutely. Buy a quiver full.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks, man. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
Yep. We'll see you. Bye.
See ya.